What's up, Eastside? My name's Montana, and I'm stoked that you're here today. Okay, let me jump in by telling you a story about little Montana. So when I was little, I was terrified of the dark. Like so terrified that I didn't want to move from under my covers without having some sort of light on. Let me give you an example. Was anyone ever scared of monsters hiding under their bed when they were little? Well, I was so scared, specifically scared of something being under my bed, that in the middle of the night, I would yell for my mom whenever I even needed a sip of water, like from my nightstand. But you guys, you want to hear how scared I actually was? Like the water cup was like right here next to my bed, like right next to it. The only problem was there was a 2-inch gap between me and the table. 2 inches. I mean, that's enough for a monster to obviously grab my hand while reaching for the cup. So every night when I needed a sip of water, I would yell for my mom, and my sweet mother would walk from her room to turn on a light so that I could safely grab my water and take a sip without obviously the monster grabbing my hand. Yeah, the dark was not my friend. But you guys, that silly memory makes me wonder how many people we walk by every single day who, in one way or another, need someone to bring light into their lives. Have you ever thought about that? I think if we pay enough attention, we can see that our world has quite a bit of darkness that could use God's light. When we learn about what's going on in the world on social media, hear our family talking, or learn about things in school, it can feel like the areas that need God's light, well, they're endless. I mean, there's disease and war and violence and starvation, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Maybe for you, you feel like you're in darkness in your own home. It feels like a combat zone at all times. Maybe it's the fact that you have a younger or older sibling who creates chaos for the whole house. Or maybe your parents are struggling. Maybe you don't get along with your stepdad, stepmom, or caregiver. Maybe you feel like there's darkness in your friend group. Maybe you're realizing the friends you hang with most are people who get you in the most trouble. Or maybe the darkness you feel is that you wish you had a good, trustworthy friend. You feel all alone. No one knows the real you. Darkness for you is best described as loneliness. It could be you feel like you're surrounded by darkness as it relates to how you see yourself. The more that you compare yourself to images and ideas that the world considers the standard, the more it feels like you slip into darkness. Grades, body image, friends, likes on social media, clothes, shoes. The more you feel like you don't measure up, the darker it seems to get, right? Or maybe you see the darkness affecting a friend, a family member, or someone who means a lot to you, and you so desperately want them to feel loved, supported, and cared for. You want them to see the light. Maybe there's something in you that wants to be the person who shines a light to help someone else. If that's you, there's a reason you feel that way. There's this guy named Matthew in the Bible who lived a really long time ago, and he wrote down this story in the Bible. Matthew heard Jesus say, "Your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is." Okay, a little strange, right? Like when it said, when your eye is healthy, your whole body is full of light. Now, despite how this sounds, Jesus wasn't talking about the actual eyesight. Many people who have studied the Bible believe that Jesus was actually using slang here. Yeah, even Jesus used slang words. It's kind of like if you've ever played baseball and a batter doesn't swing at a bad pitch. Your teammates, coaches, and fans will yell out, "Good eye, batter." Or if you're a trendy dresser, someone may say you have a good eye for fashion. Jesus was speaking symbolically here in the same way. To the people Jesus was talking to, the term healthy eye was used to describe someone who had a reputation for being generous. Do you know anyone like this? They're that person who always seems aware of the friend who's struggling, or is always willing to help, is always genuinely happy when other people win an award or get a good grade, is the first to start a GoFundMe and raise money for someone in need. And guess what? In Jesus' day, if you were someone who did the opposite, they'd say you'd had an unhealthy eye. Again, they weren't talking about actual eyesight. If you were someone who they described as having an unhealthy eye, it just meant that you had a reputation for being greedy, selfish, and self-centered. It would mean that you had an unhealthy way of viewing others and the world, and that you couldn't see the needs of the people around you. It was referring to someone who was unable or unwilling to see the suffering of their friends and neighbors. Let me show you what I mean. When we view the world in a healthy way, we see things clearly. We notice what's around us and we can see things the way they are, but when we put on those glasses, our vision is completely distorted. Things are blurry, unclear, and confusing. We see the world in a way that isn't accurate. We have a hard time focusing, and it's difficult to navigate our way around. Okay, welcome back. When we look at things through a blurred or distorted lens, we can't see the needs of others, and we aren't letting God's light shine through us. But when we have a clear lens to look through, God's light shines through us. When our vision isn't distorted and we have a healthy way of viewing those around us, we can view the world in a way Jesus calls us to see it. We can be people who see those who are hurting or in need. You and I can only act on what we are aware of. And once we become aware of the need, we have the opportunity to put our faith into action. That's when Jesus said our whole body will be filled with light. Jesus wanted us to know this. God's light in you brings light to others. You are all bright lights. The way you act toward the people in your class, on your team, or in the band, in the cast, or even in your own home who are struggling and in need, says a lot about what you believe and who you trust. Think about it this way. The words you use, the things you do, and the way you behave towards others either point people towards or potentially away from following Jesus. The way you and I live is that powerful. The light in us is that powerful. Everything you say and every word of encouragement, every post on social media, and every time you care for someone who is upset, every time you acknowledge someone who has been left out or sit with someone who is lonely, your actions say a lot about you. They also say a lot about the Jesus that you say you trust and that you follow. God's light in you brings light to others. If you were to be honest about how you view people and act towards them, would you have a healthy or unhealthy way of seeing and treating them? When you let God's light shine in you and have a healthy way of viewing things like Jesus described, you start having a whole new perspective of the world. You start looking out to see the needs of people around you and then focus in on ways to be generous and supportive. Like Jesus challenged his audience that day we read about in Matthew. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. You see, when you let God's light in you shine to others, they see your good deeds, and those good deeds lead to a good God. And as you move to support and comfort those who need it, God's love will shine out for all to see. Here are just a few things that we can do if we want a healthy way of viewing the world. Number 1, pay attention to what you're allowing in. Like what you're watching, you're seeing, and listening to, it all impacts your spiritual eyes. Is what you're allowing into your mind actually healthy for you and your faith? You have to think about it. Okay, number 2, when you see a need, act on it. Acting when you see a need makes your spiritual eyes stronger. God put that need in front of you, so act on it no matter how scary or uncomfortable it may feel. Is there a need that you can meet right now? Think about that. Okay, number 3, if your vision changes, speak up. Just like you need to tell someone if you notice that your physical vision has changed, say something to a trusted adult when you're struggling to see the needs around you or do good for those struggling. That may be a sign that something needs some attention in your heart. Has the way you view God in your world become unhealthy or unclear? Who do you trust to talk to? This week, you and I have the chance to make decisions that will either shine light into the world or allow darkness to settle. We can choose to ignore the feelings of others, to step over their situation and overlook their struggles, or we can see the pain and injustice in the world and choose to do something about them. Jesus encourages us to view the world through a healthy lens that sees the needs of others. He wants us to act to help and care for them in a way that brings peace into their lives and ultimately points them towards God. Because remember, God's light in you brings light to others.